Okie doke, so we're going to learn about quadrilaterals that aren't going to be parallelograms. And there are two kinds. We have trapezoids and we have kites. And so we have two kinds of trapezoids. We have a specific one called an isosceles trapezoid, and then we have the generic trapezoid. Okay? So a trapezoid has one pair of parallel sides. Okay, that's what we denote those arrows by. So the top, the base, the two bases are parallel. The only thing we know about the angles is that the angles are going to equal 360 degrees. Okay, that's pretty much all I know about trapezoid. And I don't know anything about the diagonals because there is nothing. Okay, so trapezoid is very vague. Now an isosceles trapezoid is more specific, so we know some more information about it. So first off, the legs are congruent. So I'm going to put are congruent. Okay, so these are the legs. So it's not the parallel sides, it's the sides that are not parallel. Okay. We also know the base angles are congruent. Okay, so what that means is these base angles, if these are parallel, it's the one that make up the parallel side. So these top two are congruent, and then the bottom two are congruent. Okay, so they run along that parallel side. Okay, the second thing we know are same side interior equal 180. Okay, so again, if you've got parallel lines, you've got same side interior angles. Okay, so it's the two sides, the two angles that make up one base and the other base would equal 180. Okay. All right, lastly, we know that the diagonals are congruent. Okay, so if I called this AB and this CD, I know that AB is going to be congruent to CD. So the whole diagonal is the same. Notice that they're not going to bisect each other, okay, because this piece is not the same as that piece, okay. And that's all we know about isosceles trapezoids, okay. Okie doke, moving on. Our last shape of a quadrilateral is a kite, and all the properties of a kite that you fly in the air are true right here, okay. So to be a kite, the consecutive sides are congruent. And what that means is the top two sides are congruent and the bottom two sides are congruent. Okay, so notice the top left and the bottom left are not the same, just the top and the bottom. The angles, the left and the right angle are congruent. Okay, so this left angle and this right angle is congruent, okay, but not the top and the bottom. Okay, so the whole left angle, the whole right angle are congruent. Okay, the diagonal, we've got a couple things going on. One diagonal is a bisector. Okay, so what that means is one of the diagonals cuts a piece in half. And so it's this up and down diagonal that's going to cut this piece in half so that you've got two congruent pieces, okay? They look the same. But lastly, they're perpendicular. So just like in a square and a rhombus, you have a perpendicular angle where the diagonals meet. So again, you technically have 4 right angles, okay? All right, so that is all you have to know about kites and trapezoids. So let's take a look at some practice problems of applying those properties. So the first one, we want to know angle R. So first off, here are my parallel sides. It's not an isosceles triangle, so my base angles aren't the same. But I do know that same side interior are going to equal 180. So just do 180 minus 65 to get 115. Okay? So can I bump over here and find P or Q? The answer is no, because I don't know anything about them. Okay, so you can just find the same side interior. So you can't say that these are also same side interior, because these would have to be parallel. All right, what would be V, X, and W? So if this is an isosceles triangle, I know those bases are the same, and these bases are the same. So I know V is also going to be 70 degrees. Now to find the other X and W angle, I do know that same side interior equal 180. So it's pretty much only true in an isosceles trapezoid that you can know all the angles once you know one. Okay, so 180 minus 70 is 110. So each of the other ones would be 110 degrees. All right, okie doke. So why don't you try these two on your own? Press pause and we'll go over the answer. So for this one over here, I knew angle F was also 60 because they were both base angles. Therefore, D and E had to be 120 because same side interior equal 180. To find the measurement of EF, you just had to know that CD was the same. So if CD is 15, then EF is 15. Over here, KM was 22, and it wanted you to find JL, and we know that the diagonals are congruent, so it's going to be 22. Now, if they gave you an equation, you would just make sure to equal that equation up to 22. All right, kite practice. A little bit trickier. The perimeter of the kite is 116. So remember, perimeter is when you add up all the sides. So if that double mark was 28, then that double mark is 28. And if the single mark is X, then the other mark is X. So I just need to add those sides and set them equal to 116 of the perimeter. Okay. So once you solve for that, you should get X equals 30 because you're just going to combine like terms. And solve that one-step equation. Okay. All right, let's look at this. Actually, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to have you guys try that one. Let's look at this bottom one right here. So I need to find for an X. There's a couple things that are going to happen. First off, you know that the diagonals are going to be right angles. Okay. The second thing is you notice that there are 4 little separate tiny triangles in this. Okay. So first off, I need to solve for X. So if X is this piece up here, it's also this bottom piece because the diagonal cuts the angle in half. So I know that this is also a right angle. So I can use my notch of a triangle and solve for X. So I would say X plus 80 plus 90 is going to equal 180. So once you subtract those from 180, you should get X equals 10. Okay. Another way of looking at that problem is if this angle right here is 80, then this angle up here is also 80, okay? Because the left and right angles are congruent. So you could have used this top triangle to solve for X that way and done 180 minus 80 minus 90. All right, so now we're going to find Y. So same thing. This measure right here is Y, which is also right there. So we could use this knowledge of a triangle, knowing that this left angle is Y and this top angle is 50 and the bottom is 90. So I could say Y plus 50 plus 90 equals 180. Or you could just do 180 minus 90 minus 50 to get that Y is going to be 40. Okay. Another way you could have thought about it is you could have bumped 50 down into its spot right here of 50 because the left and the right angle are the same. So you're really going to use that knowledge of triangles in a kite, okay? So why don't you try these two on your own? Press pause and we'll go over the answer. Okay, so on this top part, they gave you AB and AD and they wanted you to find their corresponding sides. So BC was 12 and DC was 4. Okay, the perimeter was going to be 32 if you add up all the sides. Okay, so again, sides of a kite aren't that bad. Over here, we've got lots of angles and sides going on. So I wanted you to find W, X, and Y. So here is W, and I noticed that it's this exact same piece over here because this long diagonal is going to bisect it. So if FR is 4, then RY is 4. So W is going to be a 4. Over here, then I found X first, and I knew that the left and the right angles were the same. So if this was 30, then X is going to be 30. And then I used my knowledge of a triangle, and that if this is 30, and then this is 90, I did 180 minus 90 minus 30 to get 60 for this angle up here. Okay, so a couple quick things. If this is 60, I also know that piece is 60. Okay, and that's pretty much all I can figure out. All right, so that is how you find kites and trapezoids, measurements of sides, angles, and diagonals. You're more than welcome to practice. Let me know if you have a question, but thanks for watching.